Hi there yarn jugglers, it's Babs here from My Fiery Phoenix, and this video is a tutorial for the Carousel Crochet Along by Sue Pinner, being run by Stylecraft. This is the second video for part 4, where we will be taking our centre and converting it into a slightly lopsided hexagon, which means we will end up with something that has 6 sides from our beautiful flower here. And each of these border rounds are different. They are different within themselves and they are different to each other. So please pay attention to your counts and double check as you go along, because it's so much easier to correct a simple mistake as you go than it is to try and find out where that mistake is once you've finished the piece. So the first thing we're going to do is start working on the straight edges and how we create our straight edges from our circular flower here. I don't like to start exactly on this particular join, because where we're starting is going to be the outer point of our hexi. This is going to be the longest 2 sides of our hexi. So find a portion of the flower that you like, and we're going to start working on that particular point. And what we do is we need to identify where our loops are in relation to our chains, which sounds quite strange, but I'll explain. We'll be working in the loop before our main drop. We will need to identify and work in the loop directly after the main drop, and we'll be working with our other 2 plain loops. But don't ignore the loop that is here, or else you're going to find yourself miscounting all over the place. However, we start off to the right of any one of your main drops here. So we just insert the hook, pull our yarn through, and we're going to chain 2 for a double. No, we're not. We're going to chain 2 for a treble, and then we're going to create another treble. We are going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to create another 2 trebles in this same space. So it's 1, 2, and this then becomes our main point for our hexi. This will become our farthest point out. Now you can use a stitch marker, however I know that this is the starting and ending point, and once I've finished my round I'll have a tail, and I use that tail as my marker. That's what I do. I live dangerously. You may not wish to do that. You may have beautiful stitch markers that you want to use. You could use tails of spare thread. It doesn't matter, as long as you're aware that this is the start and end point, and it's also the pinnacle, the point between our 2 longest sides for our hexing. Now we have 2, chain 2 and 2. We're going to move on with trebles. We're working in trebles for this entire circle now, and we're going to go into the next gap, tidy up those loose threads as we go, as we have been doing all the way through. So we 1 treble, and then into the next gap for 2, into the next stitch for 3, and for only the outer 2, the first and last strips or stripes, we go into the 4th stitch here, which is in front of the next drop. Oh, it would help if I had a treble. There we go. So that's the stitch in front. All other sides, the other 4 sides, will jump over that space. We won't stitch into it, but for our 2 longest sides we will. So once we've done our 4th, we then stitch into the next one along. So this gives us 5, 6 and 7 for this first side. oops, 7. So not including the 2 stitches that we've done here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches along this edge. We should now be at the point of the stitch ahead of the next big long drop, and what we're going to do is create our first corner. So we'll be working 2 trebles, a chain of 2, and then another, no it's not, it's 1 treble, a chain of 2 and 1 treble. And you need to be very careful on these counts. So we go for our first treble. We're then going to work a chain of 2, 1, 2, and then our second treble, and this will create our first corner. And where we had 7 stitches along here, we're actually going to create 3 on either side and jump the stitch in the centre over this pillar, which will give us 6. Nothing like doing simple maths there. So we're going to go in this first stitch for 1, and 2, 3. We're then going to jump the next stitch. We're not going to put a treble in it. So this stitch here we're going to ignore, and we're going to come the other side, that's to the left of the pillar, for our 4th, 5th, and then 6th treble. So if I just show you that neatly, you've got the corner that you've turned with 1, chain 2, 1, and then you have 1, 2, 3, gap, 1, 2, 3, and we're now going to do another treble, chain 2, treble for our next corner. We're going to repeat this process until we come to our last edge. So I'll meet you back at this point. Here we are with our 1 long side and 4 even sides completed. Each of the even sides should have a treble, 2 chains and a treble in the corner, and it should have 3, a gap that's been skipped, or a space, and then another 3. So we're now moving on to this final longer edge, and so it's a treble in front of the drop down pillar. It's chain 2, and then we have another treble. And now we're not going to have a gap this time around, we're going to work all the way along, giving us 7 stitches up to our main point. So we'll work those trebles. So we have 1 directly after the pillar, 2, 3, and where we have been missing the next stitch, we're going to go into it here, 4, so this is the stitch to the right or just before the pillar, 5, the stitch directly after it or to the left of the pillar, 6, and then our 7th stitch is in the last free chain space. And then we simply join up with a slip stitch to that first set of stitches that we made. And so hopefully you can see that we have a slight point. I have my loose end of yarn, so I know that this is my long point, the point between the 2 longest sides. Now we can move on to round 6. If you're not too sure of the round that you're on, we can just simply count through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we're moving on to round 6. So I just need to create a little loop to start off with. Nice slip stitch there. And this time around we're going to be working evenly apart from this first point. So we'll start off with 2 trebles, 2 chains and 2 trebles, and then at each point we will be working 1 treble, 2 chains, 1 treble, and we will be working into the top of every stitch as we're going through. We're not working in gaps, we're working in the top of stitches now. So we'll start off by creating a double chain for our first treble. and then we work our second treble, and we are starting in the largest, the point on the two longest sides, remember. And catch those loose ends. Now, so we've got our chain 2, our first treble. We'll chain another 2 now for our chain space, and then we will treble twice, which gives us our starting point. And then we will work along into, as I drop, see, tension. Tension is always the killer. If you can get your tension right, you'll be sailing. So finish off that treble. So we have 2 trebles, a chain 2, and then another 2 trebles. And we're going to work into the stitches, not gaps, the actual stitches, which means that our first treble, as we move along, goes in here. This tiny little gap here is where we should be aiming for our first treble, and then we simply work into the top of every stitch all the way along. We don't need to miss anything, we don't need to double work any spaces, we just work straight along that edge all the way down to our next corner. So here we have our 2 trebles, our double chain, our 2 trebles, and then we're working all the way into the top of every stitch. We're now back to our chain space, and this time and all the others, every other one of these corners will be working 1 treble, 2 chains, and 1 treble. And so on our long edge, that should give us, ignoring the first two stitches because they're part of this other side here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 stitches on this first long side. And then we're going to simply work into the top of all of our stitches for the rest of this hexagon. And in each corner that we come to, we will be creating a single treble, 2 chains, and a single treble. And I will meet you back up on this far side. So as we join back up, I'll just do a final slip stitch and then go over the counts for the different sides for you. It's very important to keep counting as you go around the sides, just to make sure trying to add in extra stitches as you're moving on through the pattern means that you won't necessarily get quite the finish that you're looking for. So the long sides are 13 and the short sides should be 10. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so you've got 2 trebles, 2 chains, 2 trebles, 1 treble, 1 chain, 1 treble, 1 treble, 1 treble, 2 chain, 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 1 treble. And the reason that I've gone through and said all of that for this particular round is because next time it changes again. So please pay attention to the counts as we go through. Don't sit back on your heels and think, oh, that's fine, I'll just keep going, because unfortunately that means that your stitch counts will not match by the time you come to attach your beautiful, slightly wonky hexi. So hopefully now you can see that we have 2 slightly longer sides. So we're going to move on to round 7, and again our counts are going to change. So we'll start off in this top corner, as we will do for every round, and we will do 2 trebles with 2 chains and another 2 trebles. All of the rounds start in this way. It's the rest that starts to get a little bit confusing, but that's fine. It's all totally manageable and nothing that anyone needs to worry about too much. Get some loose yarn there. Okay, so that's our 2 treble, 2 chain, 2. And so now that we've got our top corner made, we're going to then stitch into the top of every item again. So each stitch we're going into the top of. So the very first one is going to be this teeny tiny one here. We're doing a treble, and then we're going to treble along the top into the top of every stitch all the way along the edge to our corner. And so I shall do that and meet you back at the corner for the first of our slightly different numberings. So here we are on the first of the shorter sides for round 7. So we've done two chains and 2 trebles, and we've worked our way all the way along the end to the next corner. And this time we're going to work 2 trebles, 2 chains and 1 treble. Now this gives us, I believe, 17 stitches along this edge, so we ignore the first 2 and count up the rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we should have 17 along here, which is excellent. Now for the next 3 corners, so we will work 1 treble, 2 chain, 1 treble, 1 treble, 2 chain, 1 treble, 1 treble, 2 chain, 1 treble. And when we come back to this corner, we'll work 1 treble, 2 chain, and then 2 treble, because we're mirroring the double trebles that we've put in here, the 2 trebles we've put in this side. So what I'll do is I'll work my way around to here and then just show you the 1 chain, 1 treble, 2 chain, 2 trebles, just so that you can see what it looks like on this side, and then it's just a matter of running along and joining as we have with all the other sides. Here we are back at the last corner. So we've had 2 trebles, 2 chains, 2 trebles, 2 trebles, 2 chains, 1 treble, and then these 3 were all 1 treble, 2 chains, 1 treble, and we're back to this final corner, which is going to mirror the first that we made, which is 1 treble, 2 chain and 2 treble. And here we have the second treble. And then we're going to continue on in the top of each stitch, so we'll find that sneaky little one there. And then storm our way across the top to join to finish this round. So I'll meet you back for round number 8, where the numbers change again. So I'll see you back here in a moment. So this is the completion of round 7, and we're moving on to round 8. And one thing that I would say is where you're joining your slip stitch, your final slip stitch, try not to make it too tight. Otherwise, when you come to work this stitch, which is where you've joined, it's going to be very tricky for you to actually pop your hook through there. Just a little tip for you there. It might save you some aggravation going around the 16 of these if you're just making the one. 32 if you're making the 2, and I'm not even going to attempt to do the maths if you're making more than that. So let's crack on with this next round, round number 8. We start as always in this point, and we start with 2 trebles, chain 2, and then another 2 trebles. Now, unlike last time, we're going to be using standard corner counts for all corners that we reach on this. So absolutely every single corner will have a single treble, 2 chain and a single treble. So apart from this first starting point, all the others will have exactly the same counts. And what I'll do is just show you the starting one last time, find that extra tiny little stitch to start with, and then move along through the counts, and I will meet you back at the end of this particular round. Nothing else exciting is going to happen. It's just a matter of explaining the counts, and I will count up all the stitches before we move on to round 9, which is the oh so important round of actually joining, which means all these counts need to be correct. Absolutely correct for when we join to the rest of our blanket. So I'll catch you back up here once I've joined it, and we will go through and double check all the counts. But remember, the corners, all the other corners are treble, double chain, treble. I'll see you back in a moment. And here we are at the end of our 8th row, and we should have 20 stitches along the long side and 14 along the short. So we'll just double check that count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Excellent. 14 on the shorter side. So all 4 shorter sides should be 14, and then the 2 longer sides should have 20 stitches in them. So we'll just double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Perfect. And that is as far as this video will take us. The next video will be the joining, and that will show you how to join along these 2 sides. The video after that will show you how we join along the 3 sides, and then the very last video in the selection for this particular pattern piece, which is week 4, will show you how we join along all 4 sides. Which will then mean that you have completed at least 16 of these gorgeous little panels. And I think these motifs are truly beautiful. So thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe, all those good things. And I shall see you next time, which is the first joining round for this edge. See you soon. Bye for now.